Today, we are going to further explore immunology. We will start with immunogenicity, then learn some other characteristics of antigens, types of antigens, antibodies, in which we will further learn their structure, types, and functions. And finally, we will see monoclonal antibodies and abnormal antibodies. Watch part of immune system from the link in description.
The absolute core concept we're exploring today is immunogenicity. This is simply defined as the innate ability of an antigen, which is just a foreign substance. Immunogenicity is actually governed by 4 measurable factors. You can think of it as a biological potency dashboard. First is size. To be an effective antigen, a molecule generally needs a molecular weight greater than 10,000 Daltons, something like hemoglobin. Second is structural complexity. Proteins, because they have 4 distinct levels of structural organization, are by far the most potent. Carbohydrates sit somewhere in the middle, while simple, highly repetitive structures like lipids and nucleic acids are incredibly weak antigens. Third is enzyme susceptibility. A substance absolutely must be degradable by the body's enzymes so it can expose its unique identifiers, which we call epitopes. A completely non-degradable material, like a piece of polystyrene latex, just isn't antigenic at all. And finally, foreignness. The greater the genetic distance from the host, the higher the antigenic potency. On the flip side, our own self-antigens naturally yield a state of low potency tolerance. It's important to realize that the immune response isn't just a simple on and off switch. It's highly variable. There's a dosage response curve that dictates we need an optimal dose to achieve a peak immune response. A dose that's too low completely fails to elicit a reaction, but interestingly, a massive overdose causes the response to plummet, inducing immunological tolerance. Furthermore, every single individual's genetic makeup naturally dictates whether they'll be a rapid responder, a slow responder, or a non-responder. The route of administration, the specific entry vector, also fundamentally changes the response. The parenteral route, which is typically an injection, is generally superior for creating a widespread systemic response. By contrast, the oral route is highly specialized. It specifically induces the localized production of IgA antibodies right in our mucosal linings. Because scientists understand these natural limitations, they've actually developed methods to artificially boost immunogenicity using specialized substances called adjuvants. These adjuvants operate through 2 primary mechanical pathways. The first mechanism is delayed release. By physically encasing the antigen, the adjuvant keeps it present in the body for a much longer duration. The second mechanism involves direct cellular activation. This biologically stimulates key immune players, specifically activating the phagocytes that physically consume the threat and the T helper cells that orchestrate the broader biological counterattack. As we continue breaking this down, we biologically classify antigens into 2 standard pathways. T-dependent antigens represent the vast majority of normal threats we encounter. They require a very meticulous, multi-step process. First, they're processed by antigen-presenting cells, then they're formally presented to T cells, which finally release cytokines to activate the B cells. It's a highly regulated, secure chain of command. In sharp contrast, T-independent antigens, which include robust structures like bacterial capsules and flagella, bypass this chain entirely. They directly stimulate the B cells without needing any T cell help whatsoever. However, because it uses this direct route, it yields a much more limited response, primarily just producing one type of early-stage antibody. But we have to... Under normal, healthy activation, an antigen-presenting cell and a T cell connect very precisely, recognizing a specific, unique antigen peptide. A superantigen, however, comes in and physically bridges the presenting cell and the T cell receptor in a completely non-specific manner. It just locks them together indiscriminately. The result of this short circuit is a massive, highly toxic systemic immune activation, which is famously known as a cytokine storm. Activated B cells, which are known as plasma cells, produce these specialized glycoproteins in direct response to an antigen. Once they're produced, they circulate primarily in the gamma globulin fraction of our blood serum. If we look at them structurally, every basic antibody forms a very distinct Y-shaped heterodimer. This elegant structure is built from exactly 4 polypeptide chains. You have 2 identical, longer, interior heavy chains that weigh over 50,000 Daltons each, and 2 identical, shorter, exterior light chains weighing 25,000 Daltons each. And these 4 chains are securely locked together into that Y shape by highly stable disulfide bonds. Now, if we drastically zoom in on the very tips of this Y shape, we find the exact mechanism of specificity. The first 110 amino acids of both the heavy and light chains form what is called the variable region. Within this specific space, there are magnified, ultra-specific hotspots known as hypervariable regions, or CDRs. These are the exact physical points that make contact with the antigen's epitope. The remainder of the chain is the constant region, featuring a highly uniform amino acid sequence. And to actually accommodate antigens of varying shapes and sizes, the antibody utilizes remarkable mechanical flexibility. A specialized proween-rich hinge joint located specifically in certain heavy chain classes mechanically allows the 2 arms of the antibody to reach, to pivot, and to securely bind to its target. So the crucial takeaway here is that this architecture creates a highly specialized dual-function mechanism. The top half, called the Fab region, is strictly for precise antigen binding. You can think of it as the custom key. The bottom half, the FC region, functions as the biological engine. Once the top locks onto a threat, the bottom FC region actively interacts with the host's immune system to destroy it. This effector function essentially takes 4 distinct forms. It can trigger complement fixation, which leads to the direct physical lysis or bursting of the target cell. It can cause opsonization, essentially coating the microbe to make it highly attractive for phagocytes to come and consume it. Uniquely for one class of antibody, the FC region allows for placental transfer, letting it cross maternal barriers to provide vital immunity to a fetus. And finally, it can trigger cell activation, binding directly to natural killer cells so they release destructive enzymes right onto the target. Now, this biological engine comes in 5 distinct isotypes or classes. First is IgG. This is the most abundant monomer, making up 70 to 80% of our antibodies. It has the longest half-life and holds that unique ability to cross the placenta. Next is IgM, which is structurally massive. It's a pentamer with 10 separate binding sites, making it the very first antibody produced in an acute infection. Then we have IgA, which exists as a dimer and is the predominant defender in our body's secretions, providing absolutely crucial mucosal immunity. IgE is heavily involved in mediating type 1 hypersensitivity, which we know as allergies, and it actively defends against parasitic worms. And lastly, IgD, which primarily just sits right on the surface of B cells, serving as a critical cellular receptor. When plasma cells mutate, they inevitably produce abnormal immunoglobulins, and this leads to some very distinct, identifiable pathologies. Let's look closely at 3 primary examples. The first is Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia. This is diagnostically hallmarked by an excessive pathological overproduction of those massive IgM pentamers we just discussed, which severely thickens the patient's blood. The second is heavy chain disease, which is characterized by the production of short, abnormally truncated heavy chains that completely fail to form a working antibody. And the third is cryoglobulinemia. This is a condition often clinically associated with hepatitis C and multiple myeloma, where these abnormal proteins physically precipitate and clump together whenever they are exposed to cold temperatures in the extremities. Building directly on the pathology of multiple myeloma, we find a truly fascinating diagnostic anomaly known as Bence Jones proteins. These are essentially excess light chains that are produced in massive unchecked quantities by mutated cells. What makes them diagnostically unique is their thermal behavior. If you take a clear sample of a patient's serum and slowly heat it, these specific proteins will physically coagulate and completely cloud the tube right at 50 degrees Celsius. However, if you just continue heating that exact same tube up to 70 degrees Celsius, The Bence Jones proteins will uniquely redissolve right back into a perfectly clear solution. It's a highly specific, temperature-dependent diagnostic marker that is incredibly reliable. This deep understanding of natural structure and pathology naturally leads us to our final topic, engineered monoclonal antibodies. We'll begin here with a precise definition of this remarkable human intervention. The monoclonal antibody, or MAB, is a laboratory-engineered antibody derived entirely from a single identical clone of plasma cells. You see, unlike a natural immune response, which produces a highly mixed variety of antibodies attacking many different parts of a virus at once, monoclonal antibodies are designed for absolute precision. They are meticulously engineered to bind to one and only one specific. We start by extracting a stimulated B cell from a subject. This provides the precise antibody specificity that we want. Next, we take a cancerous myeloma cell, which provides the incredibly useful trait of infinite cellular replication. We then physically fuse these two distinct cells together in a culture to create what is called a hybridoma. Finally, this hybridoma multiplies indefinitely, effectively acting as a living biological factory that produces an infinite supply of identical monoclonal antibodies. Because it's comprised of 100% human protein, it is the most advanced and clinically accepted format to successfully prevent patient rejection. And they impact nearly every single facet of modern medicine. In diagnostics, they serve as the standard reagent in color-changing ELISA testing kits. In laboratory research, they're used for precise cell identification, literally tagging specific cell types like CD4 T cells so we can see them. In pharmacology, they serve as affinity columns for molecular isolation, purifying extremely specific antigens right out of complex biological mixtures. And perhaps most profoundly, they are deployed as highly specific targeted therapies. They act as guided biological warheads, triggering apoptosis or cellular death in very specific cancer cells without harming any surrounding healthy tissue. And this brilliantly illustrates our final synthesis for this explainer. Modern medicine doesn't need to reinvent the wheel.